What is up, Rad Potential YouTube? Welcome to today's video. I'm Mr. Rad. Behind me is Buzz the RX8. This is a 2004 RX8 that I bought for one pair of Mazda RX8 seats. That's how much I invested. The seats in this car were good and it wasn't running when I bought it. Over the past couple months, we got this thing running. We drove it, we dynoed it. It made a whopping 130 horsepower NA. We then tried the fancy, well-renowned hybrid Renesis engine. Big flop, didn't work NA, so we took that engine back out. And now it has its original low compression engine, but runs good, 130 horsepower installed back in there. And we're going to be boosting the stock Renesis RX8 with low compression. So we only run top of the line turbos around here. So this is a Garrett GT35R from the good old eBay. It's got a T3 flange on it. Lovely, small. It's a 70 front and an 82 back housing. It should spool really quick. Honestly, we're not trying to make like 4,000 horsepower here. The whole goal of this RX8 is, can we make a 200 horsepower or more RX8 on the cheap? So we got this turbo, and in this box we've got the reason that you guys are all here. This is my Amazon special turbo kit, or at least the intercooler part of the turbo kit. So this is just a whole bunch of 2.5-inch piping bends, all of the cheapness. We're going to be figuring out how to route all of this, putting the intercooler where we kind of already decided it was going to go. I got a little bit of a head start working on the turbo manifold, so that's where we're going to start. For those of you who haven't seen the engine bay of an RX8 before, this is a Renesis rotary engine minus the upper intake manifold. This is how far I've gotten to where the turbo is going to sit. So this is just mock-up turbo chilling, but if you can imagine, it's going to ride somewhere maybe like that. Plus or minus, this is where this is going to ride. Now you might ask, how are we going to fit a downpipe out of this deal? No downpipes, just hood exit pipes, because rotary flames, I want to see the flames. We don't want to have flames out behind the car. We just want them right up in our face. So there isn't really a whole lot of room to run a downpipe as well. And you know, with Greddy turbo kits, all these other like more nice fancy turbo kits, they have downpipes that connect to the stock exhaust, and it's a tight squeeze, things melt. We're just avoiding all of that headache. So taking a quick look up under the car, here you can see the start of my log manifold for this turbo setup. I'm using actually one of my old hybrid flanges. I had bought a couple extra ones of these. I took some 2-inch stainless pipe, hammered it down, and this big section of tubing that you see right here is not anything fancy. It is literally a first generation RX7 drive shaft tube. So I wanted something that was a lot thicker to handle all of the heat. This is like 1/8-inch wall, very thick, mild steel. So we're just gonna weld all of our stainless straight to that. Everything that's going up to the turbo, as far as up through here, is all stainless as well. So it should be a relatively stout setup as far as not cracking apart in the first 20 minutes of rotary heat. The interesting thing about this log manifold is that the wastegate is actually going to be on the opposite side of the manifold from the turbo. So most people think you put that wastegate like right in line so it has nice priority. We're going to be running maybe 6 to 8 pounds of boost. I don't think that it's going to have a huge effect if I put the wastegate back here on the back. So all of the exhaust gas will come out. It'll go forward to go through the turbo or backward to go through the wastegate. Wastegate will live here and just shower the ground with all sorts of flames. So this thing is not finished welded. It is taped, tacked, and held together with hopes and dreams. So I'm going to take this manifold back off of here so I can finish weld it and get this thing situated back on the car. This is the start of the turbo manifold off the car. You can see nicely taped, marked, craziness. What I've got to actually do is get in here and cut the holes into the drive shaft so that the actual exhaust gases can come out. You know, that is important. We just wanted to make sure that this thing would fit on here nicely. So I'll mark up these holes, tack this together, we'll Dremel all that out. We should be off to putting this thing back on and then trying to figure out the exact location of the T3 turbo flange and where that's going to go on the car. I know the elephant in the room, guys. This is a Make America Faster Again shirt. I forgot my Hawaiian shirt today. So today, it's not a vacation day. We're actually hard at work today because, you know, Hawaiian shirts, we're on vacation every day around here. It's time to burn this thing in. I think it's impossible for me to work on a car without having to lay on the ground at some point, even with a lift. Somehow this thing goes in here. Let's see, it's like the hybrid header all over again. It just won't fit. It's just hitting the subframe right there. Like the engine has to move over just a bit, or well, you give it a good. Gotta take that engine mount off so that this thing will fit in here. That's annoying. But it seems like that's RX8 normal. Let's see here. Super tight fit on everything. There we go. Just like we drew it up. The wastegate is tight. Should have kicked it over just a tad more. But this heat shield's right here, so I'll just hammer the heat shield in and it'll be fine, I think. But I guess the engine does have to come down a bit, so that'll give me more room too. Now it shouldn't fall out. It's very important that I get this turbo clocked the right way. So what that means is you basically have a turbo oil feed that needs to come in the top. The turbo oil drain is going to drain the oil out the bottom, and then this one has provisions for being water cooled, so you could run coolant through this to cool down the center housing rotating assembly, CHRA. I'm not going to run water lines to this. We're just going to run it with oil only. Shouldn't really hurt it that bad, just being a little street car, turbo, whatever. It's still just a $142 Garrett Air It turbo, so not that worried about it. We're going to run it there. This is where this thing has ended up. I'm pretty happy with it. Looks good. So we've got charge pipes to run through here. Come down here, run down to the intercooler in the front, back up from the intercooler up there. We've got an intake tube that's going to go here with a filter and all that. So let's tighten this baby down. We'll put the upper intake on, get the intercooler situated, and then start figuring out our Amazon intercooler piping kit. Alright guys, so this is everything that we get with our Amazon intercooler piping kit basically. So 245s, a couple 90s, a couple 180s, a whole bunch of rather, I mean, they're T-bolt clamps to say the least. They're a little flimsy looking, not quick release, but that's no big deal. And then also a bajillion couplers. So we have a couple 90-degree couplers, some straight couplers, and with all of this, I'm gonna make the cold side for the Turbo RX8 on the cheap. So I've already started with chopping up a few of these pipes and laying some of this stuff out in here. One major change that I am gonna do is this intercooler. I just have had it laying around. It's from like a V-mount kit or some homemade V-mount from an FD RX7, and the inlets are in the wrong place. So I need to ultimately move one of these. They both face backwards, and I want to cut this one off and put it right here. So what that's going to allow me to do is the turbo, or let's say the cold side of the intercooler coming from the turbo, is going to come through this hole right here, go straight down, and I can put a 90-degree coupler on the side of the intercooler so it just goes straight up. And that'll prevent me from having to do some weird U-turn in here or just something crazy. the one on this side can stay where it is, and I will run a long tube all the way down underneath the radiator, up this side, up through the hole right somewhere in this vicinity, missed the air conditioner belt, the AC lines, the oil cooler. There's a whole bunch of madness happening in here. And then ultimately it will turn in and go right there to the throttle body. So this is the upper intake manifold installed. I put the ignition coils on here so we can see those. In all this madness, pretty much I'm just going to put a filter on the turbo and call it a day. One of the things that is really hard about turbo cars is keeping your intake air temps down. So the intercooler's job is to cool the air coming into the engine. Hot air means detonation. This engine's high compression, which means a higher risk of detonation. So I'm not doing myself any favors by just putting the air filter, you know, here in the engine bay somehow. So what I'm thinking is I cut this 90 a little short. I cut this 180 here. This is going to go like this of sorts and get welded together. There'll be a straight coupler here. Probably gonna put a straight coupler to a bend that goes down so the coupler can sit in here and the rubber coupler can ride on the metal of this, so just there's no rubbage on the actual intercooler pipe itself. And then down there will be that 90. I'll need a 90-degree coupler on this end to go that way. And then we'll figure out some sort of a snake through here with one long, you know, intercooler pipe. But more cutting, more fabbing. Amazon parts are exactly that. They're Amazon, they're cheap. We're just gonna have to make it work. So that's what we're gonna do. There'll be enough flex in that 90-degree coupler to make that turn. Sweet. One side, done. Mint. Alrighty, well, that's pretty much done. I'm pretty happy with how everything shook out. So I've got tubes going here. Tubes coming down. Tubes go into the intercooler. You got the little long run, you know. Very 90s JDM FC RX7 vibes. Like Gretty front mount kit for an FC. Just tubes going everywhere. I'm going to pull the intercooler off. We'll cut a piece out on the plasma table that's the right size to fit this. And then I'll have that welded in there, and I'll weld a piece of intercooler piping on here. 90-degree coupler right into that. Comes right up, little S-curve. Probably weld that, but honestly, why not just put a coupler there? We're already like coupler central, couplers everywhere. We got a coupler here, coupler there, coupler there. There's, you know, not everybody can TIG weld, me included. So I can't weld aluminum, so we might just coupler it. Turbo's chilling here, and we need an air filter somewhere. It's probably going to have to live right about there, or honestly get a shorter one, because this car is going to be tuned on the stock ECU, or at least that's my goal. So we're going to need to have a MAF sensor. That's mass airflow, not MAP as in MAP pressure, but mass airflow. So in the sense of like, what are we doing, budget build, etc., I'm going to be chopping this section of the airbox apart. We're going to take this plastic piece that has the MAF sensor in it. That MAF sensor will have to go somewhere between the inlet of the turbo and the filter, so that as the car breathes and sucks in air, we can rescale the MAF so we get the right fueling for then being boosted. Not something that's super common to do on a stock ECU car. I know some old 240SX guys do that with like SR20s and stuff, but on the RX8, Ernie at Phalanx Performance has done it before. I know we can do it. He did that, you know, many years ago before there was any like Adaptronic plug-and-play options for the RX8s. I want to try to make that happen, so we're going to see what we can do. This is the epitome of, I want budget turbo RX8. As long as it makes 201 horsepower, I don't care what boost it takes to get that. That's the goal. And for, you know, sub 20 pairs of RX8 seats invested. So remember, we bought this car for one pair of RX8 seats. We got it running. We did full bolt-ons, tested that, invested quite a few pair of RX8 seats in this deal. But now we've got eBay $142 turbo, $100 intercooler pipe kit from Amazon. I've got to order some assorted Evil Energy Amazon fittings for this deal. So I need to find the special. This will be the most expensive one right here. This is like a Garrett 7/16 by 24 special feed turbo fitting to dash 4AN. So I need to order that. A turbo drain thing. We'll pull the oil pan off, put a bung in that to then drain the turbo into the oil pan. And then I was going to have a V-band welded onto the back of this. I really don't know if I can weld the cast iron very well. So drop in the comments below if you think, or like what is required to weld a stainless V-band to the cast iron. If we can't do it, then I will just cut a 4-bolt flange out like this on the plasma, and we will run the downpipe, or I guess the hood exit exhaust, out this way, put an O2 sensor in there, and then turn it up. So that's going to be the plan. That is going to be the end of this video. Turbo RX8, we're jumping right back to it. We got the manifold built in this video. Fire me up. We got the wastegate on. It's just going to screamer pipe down. We've got the intercooler piping mostly sorted out. I did, however, just forget that I need to include a blow-off valve somewhere. So 2 more couplers introduced to the system. We'll put a blow-off valve. I have one over here. That's just a cheesy old eBay blow-off valve. We'll use that for optimum noises. And this thing's like, I mean, it would run right now in A form. It's stock Renesis, like turnkey, fire up. So we've got to sort out the turbo feed, the turbo drain, the mass airflow piping, and then this thing runs. So in the next video, expect to hear turbo whooshy noises from the RX8, at least with the intercooler pipes disconnected so we don't blow it up trying to run it without a tune. And then we will be taking this thing, get tuned on VersaTuner, or at least we might just go do some street pulls and see what it does. So I'm excited to be back. I would say back working on Rotary content, but the rally car is Rotary now. So every single entity of vehicle that I own, aside from my dually and my CJ7 Jeep, now have Rotary engines. Don't call it an addiction. So I promise, guys, next video, I'll get back on it. We're going to be back in the Hawaiian shirt. I just forgot one today whenever I was starting to film this, and then, you know, like to just keep the Hawaiian shirts going. So we're on eternal vacation. We're trying to make this YouTube thing work. We're going to start manufacturing some parts for these RX7s on the plasma table, selling some stuff, bringing t-shirts, etc. And hopefully I won't have to go back to working for the man. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching the videos. Go check out the Patreon if you want to see more so behind the scenes stuff, what we're getting ready to start manufacturing, cutting, designing, all that stuff's going on the Patreon. In addition to, if you have questions about just, you know, RX8s, porting, engine build stuff, there's a thing on there called Rad Solutions. You can ask the questions. I make videos to answer your questions. So instead of bogging down all the YouTube stuff with how do I replace the window regulator on my RX8, I can just make that video over on Patreon and help you guys out. So with that, thank you so much for watching the videos. Keep it rad and live a life you don't need a vacation from. Peace. Letty. You're so tired, huh? You've been running around outside? Alright guys, it's like a little crowded in here. Not that the green RX-8 needs to be inside the shop by any means. It's that of a high value of a car. RX7, of course. But there's a huge thing going to happen with this car. And I had to do some measuring, some interior space measuring, okay? To see if I can fit some extra, you know, stuff in there. And then this thing's going to be making a pretty substantial drive here in a couple weeks, let's just say. Like a serious road trip, a very famous road trip. We're going to be gunning for a, let's just say, it might not be the fastest rotary car, but it's going to be the fastest rotary car to do this. So with that, peace, guys.